My name is Callie Marie Thompson, and I was born under a Texas sky so big it could swallow your dreams whole if you weren't careful. Kerrville wasn't much more than a dot on the map back then. Still isn't, really. But to me, it was the center of the universe. The hill country rolled out like God's own quilt, patches of scrub oak and cedar stitched together with red dirt roads that kicked up dust clouds in the summer heat. Daddy's ranch sat on the outskirts, a modest spread of 200 acres where longhorns grazed lazy and the Guadalupe River whispered secrets through the willows. I grew up with the smell of leather and hay in my nose, the sound of coyotes yipping at night, and Mama's voice calling me in for supper. Daddy was a quiet man, tall as a fence post, with hands rough from mending barbed wire and eyes that crinkled when he laughed. He taught me to ride before I could read, sitting me on old Bessie, our gentlest mare, and leading her around the corral until my legs stopped shaking. "Life's like ridin', Callie girl," he'd say. "You fall off, you dust yourself, and get back on." Mama was the heart of it all. She taught third grade at the elementary school in town, her classroom a riot of construction paper and crayon drawings. At home, she baked pies that won blue ribbons at the county fair, peach in summer, pecan in fall, and read me stories from tattered library books about far-off places like New York or Paris. But she always ended with, "Ain't no place like Texas, darlin'." She believed in loyalty like it was scripture. "Family and friends, that's your anchor," she'd say, stirring a pot of chili on the stove. "You hold on tight, no matter the storm." School was where I met Jake Harlan, Kerrville High, class of 2012. He was a junior when I was a freshman, the kind of boy who turned heads without trying. Tall, broad-shouldered, with sun-bleached hair under his Stetson and a grin that could melt butter. His family owned the Double H Ranch, a bigger operation than ours, 500 acres with prime river frontage. They'd struck oil in the 80s, but when that dried up, they pivoted to agritourism. Hay rides in October, bluebonnet photo ops in spring, and that big red barn they rented out for weddings. Jake worked the land after school, helping his daddy with the cattle and his mama with the events. I first noticed him at a football game, Friday nights under the lights, the whole town turning out in red and white. He was the backup quarterback, but when the starter twisted an ankle, Jake stepped in and threw a touchdown pass that had the crowd roaring. After the game, at the Dairy Queen parking lot where everyone hung out, he bought me a Blizzard, strawberry cheesecake, my favorite. "Saw you cheering in the stands," he said, leaning against his beat-up Chevy truck. "You got spirit, Callie Thompson." We started dating that spring. Slow at first, drives down River Road with the windows down, George Strait on the radio, stopping at overlooks to watch the sun dip behind the hills. Jake was steady, reliable. He didn't talk much, but when he did, it meant something. "I like how you see things," he'd say. "Straightforward, no games." We shared our first kiss under a live oak on his family's ranch, the leaves rustling like applause. High school blurred into community college for me, studying business at the satellite campus in Fredericksburg, while Jake stayed on the ranch full-time. We built a life in pieces, weekends at the San Antonio Rodeo, holidays with our families crammed around tables laden with turkey and tamales. Christmas at the Double H was magic. Evelyn Harlan stringing lights on every fence post, a massive tree in the barn with ornaments from 3 generations. Evelyn was the matriarch, elegant in her pressed jeans and turquoise jewelry, always hosting with a smile that said, "Everything's perfect here." She took to me right away, calling me sweet girl and teaching her secret brisket rub. "You're good for Jake. Keep him grounded." And Riley Dawson, she was my shadow, my sister from another mister. We met in Mrs. Jenkins' kindergarten class when she defended me from a boy who stole my juice box. "That's Callie's, you dummy," she'd yelled, fists on hips. From then on, we were inseparable. Sleepovers at my house with flashlight stories, double dates in high school, road trips to Austin for concerts. Riley was wildfire, curly red hair, freckles like sprinkled cinnamon, a laugh that filled rooms. She went to UT Austin for marketing, landed a job at an ad agency, but came home every chance she got. "Can't stay away from my bestie," she'd say, hugging me tight. When Jake proposed, down on one knee at that same overlook, the ring glinting in the sunset, I called Riley first. "Oh my God, Callie, I'm screaming! Maid of honor, dibs!" We cried and laughed, planning already. 10 years with Jake. It felt like destiny. Chapter 2. The Ring and the Road Ahead. The morning after Jake proposed, I woke up before the sun had cleared the eastern ridge, the ring already feeling like part of my hand. I lay there, in my childhood bed, the same quilt Mama made from scraps of old dresses, and held my left hand up to the faint gray light filtering through the curtains. The diamond caught what little there was and threw tiny sparks across the ceiling, like fireflies trapped in glass. Simple, practical, perfect. Jake had driven to San Antonio 3 times to pick it out, he told me later, sweating in the jeweler's chair while the salesman tried to upsell him on something flashier. "I told him no," Jake said, voice low and proud. "I wanted something that looked like you. Clean lines, strong, nothing pretending to be more than it is." I cried when he said that, right there on the porch swing where we'd spent so many nights talking about nothing and everything. Word spread fast in Kerrville. By noon the next day, half the county knew. Mama answered the landline 20 times before lunch. Neighbors, church ladies, the cashier from H-E-B who'd seen Jake buying champagne. Daddy just grinned, clapped Jake on the back hard enough to make dust rise off his shirt, and said, "Welcome to the family, son," again. We'd been together so long it felt less like a new chapter and more like turning the page on one we'd already been writing. Planning started the minute the ring was on my finger. No long engagement for us. We set the date for the following June, right when the bluebonnets would still be lingering and the heat hadn't yet turned the air to soup. Evelyn Harlan called within the hour. "Sweet girl," she said, voice smooth as polished cedar, "we're doing this at the Double H. No arguments. That barn was built for moments like yours." I didn't argue. The Double H had hosted every major Harlan wedding for 3 generations, Evelyn's own included. She sent me photos from her wedding album, her in a high-necked lace dress, Jake's daddy in a western-cut tux, the barn strung with Christmas lights even though it was May. "Tradition matters," she told me. I believed her. We met at the ranch the next weekend. Evelyn had already cleared her calendar. She walked me through the property like a general surveying a battlefield, pointing out the live oak with branches wide enough to frame the ceremony, the riverbank where we could take golden hour portraits, the gravel drive perfect for a dramatic arrival. "Guests will park here," she said, gesturing with one manicured hand. "We'll shuttle them in golf carts if the lot fills. And the barn, new roof last year, fresh whitewash inside, it'll look like something out of a magazine." I nodded, heart racing. I'd dreamed of this place since I was 16, riding fence line with Jake and imagining our wedding under those same oaks. Riley flew in the following Friday, suitcase stuffed with bridal magazines and a bottle of cheap bubbly she'd bought at the airport. We spread everything across my parents' kitchen table, color swatches, Pinterest printouts, a notebook already half filled with lists. "Rustic chic," she declared, tapping a photo of long farm tables under string lights. Wildflowers in mason jars, burlap runners, maybe some fairy lights draped like stars. No over-the-top stuff, keep it Texas. We laughed until our sides hurt, sipping sweet teas spiked with just enough bourbon to make the ideas flow faster. Mama wandered in, set a plate of fresh peach cobbler between us, and said, "Y'all better save room for real food at the reception." Riley hugged her like she was her own mama. Jake came by most evenings after chores. He wasn't much for planning, hated spreadsheets and color wheels, but he showed up for the big things. Cake tasting at the little bakery on Main Street. We tried vanilla with strawberry filling, chocolate with mocha buttercream, red velvet because Riley insisted. Jake took one bite of each, nodded solemnly, and said, "Whatever Callie wants." I chose vanilla. Simple, like us. He kissed my temple right there in the shop, flour dusting his shirt, and whispered, You're gonna look so beautiful I won't know what to do with myself. There were small hiccups, the kind you laugh about later. Jake's phone buzzed more than usual. Work texts, he said, from the new foreman they'd hired. He'd step outside to answer, come back with a tight smile. Riley canceled a dress-fitting weekend once. Client crisis in Austin, huge pitch, I'm so sorry. And rescheduled for the next month. Evelyn sometimes watched us with a look I couldn't quite read, her eyes lingering when Jake and Riley joked about old high school stories, or when the three of us sat together on the porch swing. I told myself it was wedding nerves making me notice things that weren't there. Trust was the foundation we'd built everything on. Why question it now? Invitations went out in March, hand-addressed envelopes with wax seals I'd pressed myself, little longhorn skulls embossed in gold. RSVPs started rolling in. Cousins from Houston, old classmates, Jake's rodeo buddies from college. The list climbed to 150, big for Kerrville, but the barn could hold it. We booked the band, Lone Star Ramblers, locals who played George Strait covers that made people two-step without thinking. Flowers from the Johnson farm, bluebonnets if they bloomed late, Indian Princess and Black-Eyed Susans for color. Barbecue from Smitty's in Lockhart, brisket so tender it fell apart, sausage links with that perfect snap, potato salad creamy with mustard and pickles. Evelyn was everywhere, approving menus, no brisket too smoky, guests will complain about the smell on their clothes, suggesting the florist, the Johnsons always use her, she's reliable, even helping me pick the unity candle. Tradition, she said, smiling that perfect smile. I soaked it up. Her approval felt like the final stamp on a dream I'd carried since high school. She called me sweet girl every time we spoke, hugged me a little longer than necessary, told me how proud she was to welcome me officially into the family. One quiet night in April, after a long day of measuring tablecloths and sampling linens, Jake and I sat on the porch swing at my parents' place. The air smelled of cedar smoke from Daddy's burn pile, crickets chirping steady in the dark. Stars spread overhead like spilled salt. I leaned my head on his shoulder, ring catching moonlight. Can't believe it's almost here, I said softly. He squeezed my hand. Me neither. Love you, Callie. Love you too. The swing creaked under us, familiar and comforting. Everything felt right. Solid. Unbreakable. I had no idea how wrong I was. Chapter 3. Cracks in the Foundation. Looking back, the cracks were there all along, thin as spider silk, easy to miss if you weren't looking for them. But in the glow of wedding fever, who looks for cracks? You're too busy polishing the surface, making sure everything shines just right for the big day. I told myself the little things were nothing. Stress, busy schedules, the normal wear of planning a life together after 10 years. I was wrong. They were warnings, quiet and patient, waiting for me to notice. It started small, months before the wedding. Jake's phone became a third presence between us. He'd always been the type to leave it face up on the table, old habit from ranch work, where a call could mean a sick calf or a broken fence. But that spring, it started staying face down. When it buzzed, he'd glance at it quick, then flip it over again like it was no big deal. Work, he'd say if I asked, shrugging with that easy smile. New foreman still learning the ropes. I nodded, kissed his cheek, went back to folding napkins or tasting frosting samples. Trust doesn't ask for receipts, not when you've spent a decade building it. Riley's cancellations were another thread pulling loose. She'd always been reliable, showed up with coffee and playlists, ready to dive into whatever wedding task we had lined up. But twice in April, she bailed last minute. First time, client meltdown in Austin, huge account on the line, I'm pulling it all-nighter. I texted back understanding emojis, told her not to worry. Second time, headache from hell, think it's a migraine. Rain check? I sent her ibuprofen recommendations and a heart emoji. She replied with a string of thank yous and promises to make it up. I believed her. Riley had always had my back. Why would that change now? Evelyn noticed things too, though she never said it outright. She'd always been warm with me, hugs that lingered, compliments that felt genuine, but sometimes her eyes would flick between Jake and Riley when the three of us were together, like she was watching a scene she already knew the ending to. One Saturday in May, we were all at the ranch finalizing table layouts. Riley was teasing Jake about his 2 left feet on the dance floor. "Remember prom when you stepped on my toes so hard I limped for a week?" And Jake laughed, that deep, easy rumble I loved. Evelyn stood at the barn door, arms crossed, watching. Her smile was there, but it didn't reach her eyes. When she caught me looking, she blinked, smoothed her expression, and said, "Y'all are too cute. This is going to be perfect." I smiled back, grateful. But that night, lying in bed, I replayed the moment. Something in her face had felt knowing. I pushed it down. Wedding stress, I told myself. Everyone gets a little tense. Mama noticed my quiet spells and pulled me aside one afternoon while we were pitting cherries for pie. "Everything okay, baby?" she asked, wiping juice from her hands. I nodded too fast. "Just tired, lots to do." She studied me a second longer than usual, then squeezed my shoulder. "You know you can talk to me, right? About anything." I hugged her tight and changed the subject to flower arrangements. I didn't want to admit, even to myself, that doubt had started creeping in like damp rot under good wood. The rehearsal dinner was the last big gathering before the wedding. Friday night under the stars at the Double H. Long tables set with checkered cloths, ribs smoking on the big pit, potato salad in bowls the size of wash tubs, cold Shiner box sweating in metal tubs. String lights glowed soft overhead. Crickets sang back up to the band warming up. Everyone was there. My parents, Jake's cousins from Oklahoma, old high school friends, church folks who'd known us since we were kids. Toasts went around. Daddy's voice cracked when he talked about walking me down the aisle. Evelyn's was polished and heartfelt. To Jake and Callie, the perfect match for this land and this life. People cheered, glasses clinked. Riley's toast came last. She stood, glass raised, curls catching the light. "I've known Callie since we were 5. She's the sister I never had, the one who held my hand through every heartbreak, laughed at every stupid joke, believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. And Jake," she looked at him, smiled, "you're lucky to have her. She's one of a kind. To love that lasts. Real, deep, Texas-strong love." Everyone awed. I stood, hugged her hard, whispered, "Couldn't do this without you." She hugged back fierce, eyes shining. Jake pulled us both into a group hug, laughing. It felt like the perfect cap to the night. Later, after the last guests left and the band packed up, Jake walked me to the guest cabin. The air was warm, smelling of mesquite smoke and cut grass. Moonlight silvered the pastures. He stopped at the door, cupped my face in his rough hands. "Tomorrow you become Mrs. Harlan." I smiled up at him, heart full. "Can't wait, Mr. Harlan." He kissed me slow, deep, the kind of kiss that promised forever. Then he headed back to the main house to crash in his old room, per tradition. I watched him go, boots crunching gravel, broad shoulders silhouetted against the lights. I went inside, slipped out of my sundress, hung it careful on the closet door. The white gown waited on its padded hanger, lace glowing in the lamplight like a promise. I brushed my teeth, washed my face, climbed into bed. Nerves fluttered in my stomach. Good nerves, excited ones. Sleep came in fits, dreams tangled with white dresses, endless aisles, Jake's smile waiting at the end. I woke once in the dark, heart pounding for no reason I could name, then rolled over and drifted off again. The next morning would change everything. But that night, lying there with the ring glinting on my finger and the ranch quiet around me, I still believed. Believed in the man I loved. Believed in my best friend. Believed in the family folding me in. Believed the foundation was solid. I had no idea how deep the rot had already gone. Chapter 4. The Walkaway. The ceremony started at 4:30 sharp, the way Evelyn had planned. Everything ran like clockwork in Kerrville. Church bells, football games, weddings. The string quartet struck up with Canon in D, Texas style, with a soft acoustic guitar underneath, and the guests rose in a rustle of sundresses and starched shirts. Daddy offered his arm, steady as always, and I took it. My white lace gown caught the late afternoon breeze, the hem whispering over the white runner laid across the grass. Heads turned, smiles bloomed, phones lifted. I could feel the weight of every eye on me, proud, happy, expectant. Mama daubed her eyes from the front row. Evelyn sat ramrod straight beside her, hands folded in her lap, that perfect hostess smile fixed in place. I walked slow, letting the moment stretch. The live oak arched overhead, leaves filtering sunlight into golden patches on the ground. Jake waited at the end of the aisle, hands clasped in front of him, charcoal suit crisp, hat off for once. His grin was wide, eyes shining like he'd won the lottery. When our eyes met, he mouthed, "You're beautiful." I almost believed it. Almost. Pastor Reynolds stood under the arch, Bible open, voice warm and familiar. "Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today in the sight of God and these witnesses to join this man and this woman in holy matrimony." I stopped beside Jake. Daddy kissed my cheek, placed my hand in his, and stepped back. Jake squeezed my fingers, gentle, reassuring. The ring on my left hand felt heavier than it ever had. Pastor continued, "If anyone can show just cause why this couple should not be lawfully joined together, let them speak now or forever hold their peace." Silence. The kind that hums. Then I raised my free hand. Not dramatic, not loud, just enough to stop everything. "Excuse me," I said. The quartet faltered mid-note. Guests shifted. A few soft gasps rippled through the crowd. Jake turned to me, brow furrowing. "Callie?" I slipped my hand from his. The diamond caught the light one last time as I worked the ring off, slow, deliberate. No shaking, no tears. I placed it on the small table beside the unity candle, right next to the two taper candles we were supposed to light together. It sat there, small and final, glinting like a dropped coin. "I can't do this," I said. My voice carried clear across the grass, steady enough to surprise even me. Murmurs swelled. Someone, maybe one of Jake's cousins, whispered, "What the hell?" Jake's face drained white. "Callie, what are you—" "No," I cut him off, soft but firm. "You don't get to say my name like that anymore. Not after what I heard." I turned my head just enough to find Riley in the front row, maid of honor, best friend since kindergarten, standing there in sage green with her bouquet clutched like a lifeline. Her face crumpled, guilt crashing over shock, then panic. Her lips parted, but nothing came out. I didn't speak to her. Words would have been wasted. Then I looked at Evelyn. She hadn't moved from her seat, hands still folded, posture perfect, but her eyes, those sharp, calculating eyes, locked on mine. No surprise, no outrage, just that same blank, knowing calm I'd seen outside the barn an hour earlier. She'd watched her son betray me for 2 years. She'd watched him betray the family image she guarded like a vault. And she'd chosen silence, chosen the wedding, chosen the photographs, the toasts, the illusion of perfection over one word of truth to me. In that split second, everything crystallized. She wasn't shocked. She was disappointed, not in Jake, but in me for ruining the day. I turned back to the guests, faces I'd known my whole life, neighbors, church friends, family, staring in stunned silence. Some looked horrified, some confused, a few already reaching for phones. "I'm sorry y'all came all this way, truly, but this isn't happening. Not today, not ever." I gathered my skirt, layers of lace and tulle bunching in my fists, and walked back down the aisle, heels sinking slightly into the grass with each step. No running, no tears streaming, just one foot in front of the other, the way Daddy taught me to walk a horse through a storm, calm, deliberate, eyes forward. Daddy caught up halfway. "Callie, honey." His voice cracked. "I'm okay, Daddy, I promise. Just let me go." He stopped. I kept walking. The barn doors stood open. I slipped inside, past the long tables still waiting for dinner, past the bars stocked with ice and bourbon. The guest cabin was behind it, small, private, where I'd gotten ready that morning. I shut the door, leaned against it for one long breath, then I moved fast. Zipped out of the gown, buttons undone with shaking fingers now that no one was watching, hung it carefully on the padded hanger anyway, old habits die hard. Pulled on the jeans and t-shirt I'd left there for after the reception, slipped into my favorite boots, the worn brown ones Jake had helped me break in years ago, grabbed my purse, keys, phone. Outside, my old Ford F-150 waited in the shade of the pecan trees, keys in the ignition, engine turned over with that familiar rumble. I backed out slow, gravel crunching under the tires like brittle bones. No one followed, not yet. I drove past the ranch entrance without looking back, hit the county road, then the highway, I-10 west toward Austin. 3 hours of open blacktop, windows down, wind whipping my hair until the last traces of hairspray were gone. Radio off, just the roar of tires and my own heartbeat slowing to something steady. I didn't cry until the sun dipped low and the hill country gave way to flatter land. Then the tears came, hot, silent, blurring the road lines. Not for Jake, not even for Riley, for the girl who'd believed so hard and forever she'd almost married a lie, for the decade I'd given, thinking loyalty was enough. By the time I reached the outskirts of Austin, the tears had dried. I pulled into a cheap motel off the interstate, neon sign flickering vacancy, the kind of place that didn't ask questions about a woman in yesterday's makeup checking in alone on a Saturday night. I paid cash, took the key to room 17, locked the door, sat on the stiff bed in the dark, and stared at my bare left hand. No ring, no vows, no future that wasn't mine to build. I turned my phone off, let the silence wrap around me like a blanket. For the first time in years, the silence felt like freedom. Chapter 5. Austin Rising. Austin took me in like an old friend who didn't ask too many questions. I rolled into town just after midnight, the city lights smeared across my windshield like spilled neon paint. The city line looked different from the highway, taller, sharper, full of promise and strangers. I didn't know anyone here except Riley's old college roommates, and I wasn't about to call them, not tonight, not ever, maybe. I found a short-term rental on Craigslist the next morning, a one-bedroom walk-up above a coffee shop on South Congress. The stairs creaked like they'd seen better days. The kitchen was barely big enough for one person to turn around in, and the view was a brick wall 20 feet away. Perfect. No memories, no expectations. I paid the first month in cash from the emergency stash I'd kept hidden in an old coffee can back home. Money I'd saved for a rainy day that turned out to be a hurricane. The landlord didn't blink at my story. "Long as the rent's on time," he said, handing me the keys. I thanked him, carried my duffel bag up the stairs, and locked the door behind me. For the first week, I barely left the apartment. I slept in fits, woke up reaching for a phone that wasn't ringing, stared at the ceiling fan spinning lazy circles. Food came from the coffee shop downstairs, black coffee strong enough to wake the dead, breakfast tacos wrapped in foil that burned my fingers. I didn't turn my phone on until day 4. When I did, the screen lit up with a flood. Missed calls from Mama, Daddy, my brother, cousins, even the pastor. Texts stacked like cordwood. Concern turning to worry, turning to panic. One from Jake. "Callie, please call me. I can explain." I deleted it without reading the rest. Riley's thread started with apologies, explanations, please. "It wasn't planned, it just happened. I love you, Callie. Please talk to me." I blocked her number mid-sentence, then Jake's, then Evelyn's. One by one, I severed the lines. Digital amputation. Clean. Necessary. I needed money. Pride wouldn't pay rent. I walked into a barbecue joint on Barton Springs the following Monday, Franklin's knockoff, smoky and loud, the kind of place where tourists waited 2 hours for brisket. I filled out the application in the back office, hands steady as I filled out the application. "Any experience?" the manager asked. "10 years of Texas hospitality, and I can two-step if the tips are good." He laughed, hired me on the spot. Waitressing kept me moving, carrying trays, dodging elbows, smiling at strangers. The tips were decent, the shifts long enough to keep my mind from circling back to the ranch. Nights I came home smelling like hickory and exhaustion, showered until the water ran cold, and fell into bed too tired to dream. But survival wasn't enough. I needed purpose. One slow afternoon between lunch and dinner rush, I scrolled job boards on my phone. An ad popped up, boutique event venue in East Austin looking for a coordinator. Must have strong organizational skills, Texas hospitality, attention to detail. I laughed out loud, bitter, then real. I'd planned the wedding of my dreams down to the last wildflower stem. I knew detail. I knew hospitality. I applied that night, resume patched together from high school jobs and ranch life. Interview was 2 days later. The owner, a woman named Marisol with silver streaks in her dark hair and a no-nonsense handshake, sat me down in a converted warehouse full of exposed brick and string lights. "Tell me why you want this," she said. I didn't sugarcoat it. I planned my own wedding for a year, knew every vendor, every timeline, every contingency. Then I walked away from it the day of. I'm good at making things beautiful. I'm better at making them real. She studied me a long moment, then nodded. "You're hired." 6 months later, I quit to start my own thing. I named it Rooted Events. Simple, honest, no frills. I specialized in authentic Texas weddings, backyard ceremonies under live oaks, ranch receptions with real barbecue and two-step lessons, nothing cookie-cutter. I marketed to couples who wanted heart over polish. Word spread through Instagram, photos of long tables under fairy lights, wildflower centerpieces that looked like they grew there, couples dancing barefoot on grass. My first big booking was a vineyard wedding in Driftwood, bluebonnets in April, acoustic guitar, brisket under the stars. The bride cried when she saw the setup. "It's exactly what we dreamed," she said. I smiled and thought, I know the feeling. Business grew steady. I hired 2 assistants, young women who'd been burned by life and needed a fresh start as much as I did. We worked out of my tiny apartment at first, then rented a corner office in a co-working space near Zilker Park. I bought a little house in Mueller the next year, 2 bedrooms, a porch swing, a yard big enough for a dog. I adopted Bandit, a scruffy mutt from the shelter who liked to sleep on my feet while I drafted proposals late at night. The nights got quieter. The ache dulled to a bruise instead of an open wound. I dated here and there, nice guys mostly, musicians or teachers who didn't mind my long hours. Nothing stuck, and that was okay. I wasn't looking to replace what I'd lost. I was building what I'd never had, a life that belonged to me, root and branch. Austin wasn't home yet, but it was mine, and that was a start. Chapter 6. Echoes of the Past. 3 years slipped by like creek water over smooth stones, quiet, steady, unstoppable. Rooted Events had grown from a one-woman hustle into something real. We had a proper office now, a converted garage in East Austin with exposed brick walls, a big wooden table scarred from years of coffee rings, and shelves lined with sample books of wildflower arrangements and linen swatches. My assistants, Lena and Maria, had become family, both in their late 20s, both carrying scars from broken engagements and bad choices. We laughed over late-night edits to proposals, shared tacos from the truck outside, and celebrated every booked wedding like it was our own. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was thriving. The house in Mueller felt like home now. The porch swing creaked under my weight on Sunday mornings while Bandit dozed at my feet, ears twitching at distant sirens. I'd painted the walls soft sage green, same shade as those bridesmaids' dresses I never got to see worn, and hung black and white photos of hill country sunsets I'd taken on long drives. No wedding pictures, no reminders, just landscapes that reminded me how big the world was, how small one heartbreak could feel in comparison. I dated here and there, nice guys mostly, musicians or teachers who didn't mind my long hours. Nothing stuck, and that was okay. I wasn't looking to replace what I'd lost. I was building what I'd never had, a life that belonged to me, root and branch. Austin wasn't home yet, but it was mine, and that was a start. Chapter 6. Echoes of the Past. 3 years slipped by like creek water over smooth stones, quiet, steady, unstoppable. Rooted Events had grown from a one-woman hustle into something real. We had a proper office now, a converted garage in East Austin with exposed brick walls, a big wooden table scarred from years of coffee rings, and shelves lined with sample books of wildflower arrangements and linen swatches. My assistants, Lena and Maria, had become family, both in their late 20s, both carrying scars from broken engagements and bad choices. We laughed over late-night edits to proposals, shared tacos from the truck outside, and celebrated every booked wedding like it was our own. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was thriving. The house in Mueller felt like home now. The porch swing creaked under my weight on Sunday mornings while Bandit dozed at my feet, ears twitching at distant sirens. I'd painted the walls soft sage green, same shade as those bridesmaids' dresses I never got to see worn, and hung black and white photos of hill country sunsets I'd taken on long drives. No wedding pictures, no reminders, just landscapes that reminded me how big the world was, how small one heartbreak could feel in comparison. I dated here and there, nice guys mostly, musicians or teachers who didn't mind my long hours. Nothing stuck, and that was okay. I wasn't looking to replace what I'd lost. I was building what I'd never had, a life that belonged to me, root and branch. Austin wasn't home yet, but it was mine, and that was a start. Chapter 6. Echoes of the Past. 3 years slipped by like creek water over smooth stones, quiet, steady, unstoppable. Rooted Events had grown from a one-woman hustle into something real. We had a proper office now, a converted garage in East Austin with exposed brick walls, a big wooden table scarred from years of coffee rings, and shelves lined with sample books of wildflower arrangements and lemon swatches. My assistants, Lena and Maria, had become family, both in their late 20s, both carrying scars from broken engagements and bad choices. We laughed over late-night edits to proposals, shared tacos from the truck outside, and celebrated every booked wedding like it was our own. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was thriving. The house in Mueller felt like home now. The porch swing creaked under my weight on Sunday mornings while Bandit dozed at my feet, ears twitching at distant sirens. I'd painted the walls soft sage green, same shade as those bridesmaids' dresses I never got to see worn, and hung black and white photos of hill country sunsets I'd taken on long drives. No wedding pictures, no reminders, just landscapes that reminded me how big the world was, how small one heartbreak could feel in comparison. I dated here and there, nice guys mostly, musicians or teachers who didn't mind my long hours. Nothing stuck, and that was okay. I wasn't looking to replace what I'd lost. I was building what I'd never had, a life that belonged to me, root and branch. Austin wasn't home yet, but it was mine, and that was a start. Chapter 6. Echoes of the Past. 3 years slipped by like creek water over smooth stones, quiet, steady, unstoppable. Rooted Events had grown from a one-woman hustle into something real. We had a proper office now, a converted garage in East Austin with exposed brick walls, a big wooden table scarred from years of coffee rings, and shelves lined with sample books of wildflower arrangements and linen swatches. My assistants, Lena and Maria, had become family, both in their late 20s, both carrying scars from broken engagements and bad choices. We laughed over late-night edits to proposals, shared tacos from the truck outside, and celebrated every booked wedding like it was our own. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was thriving. The house in Mueller felt like home now. The porch swing creaked under my weight on Sunday mornings while Bandit dozed at my feet, ears twitching at distant sirens. I'd painted the walls soft sage green, same shade as those bridesmaids' dresses I never got to see worn, and hung black and white photos of hill country sunsets I'd taken on long drives. No wedding pictures, no reminders. Just landscapes that reminded me how big the world was, how small one heartbreak could feel in comparison. I dated here and there, nice guys mostly, musicians or teachers who didn't mind my long hours. Nothing stuck, and that was okay. I wasn't looking to replace what I'd lost. I was building what I'd never had, a life that belonged to me, root and branch. Austin wasn't home yet, but it was mine, and that was a start. Chapter 6. Echoes of the Past. 3 years slipped by like creek water over smooth stones, quiet, steady, unstoppable. Rooted Events had grown from a one-woman hustle into something real. We had a proper office now, a converted garage in East Austin with exposed brick walls, a big wooden table scarred from years of coffee rings, and shelves lined with sample books of wildflower arrangements and linen swatches. My assistants, Lena and Maria, had become family, both in their late 20s, both carrying scars from broken engagements and bad choices. We laughed over late-night edits to proposals, shared tacos from the truck outside, and celebrated every booked wedding like it was our own. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was thriving. The house in Mueller felt like home now. The porch swing creaked under my weight on Sunday mornings while Bandit dozed at my feet, ears twitching at distant sirens. I'd painted the walls soft sage green, same shade as those bridesmaid dresses I never got to see worn, and hung black and white photos of hill country sunsets I'd taken on long drives. No wedding pictures, no reminders, just landscapes that reminded me how big the world was, how small one heartbreak could feel in comparison. I dated when the mood struck, nothing serious, a guitar player who took me dancing at the Broken Spoke, a history teacher who loved long hikes in the Greenbelt. They were kind, funny, uncomplicated. I liked them well enough, but when they started talking future, weekends away, meeting families, I felt the old walls rise. I'm good right now, I'd say gently. Let's just enjoy this. Most understood. A few didn't. That was okay. I wasn't lonely. I was careful. Trust had to be earned twice now. One Tuesday in late October, the kind of crisp fall day when the live oaks turn gold and the air smells like wood smoke, I was scrolling the local news on my phone during lunch. Old habit from Kerrville, checking the Kerrville Daily Times online for familiar names, a quick glance to make sure no one I loved was in trouble. The wedding announcements section loaded slow on my cracked screen. I almost scrolled past it. Then I saw the photo. Jake and Riley Harlan, married the previous Saturday in a small ceremony at the Double H Ranch. The picture was taken under the same live oak where we'd planned ours. Same arch draped in ivy, same stretch of grass. Riley wore white lace, simple and elegant, her red curls pinned half up with wildflowers. Jake stood beside her in a charcoal suit, hat tipped back, that same easy grin. Evelyn was in the background, beaming, one hand on each of their shoulders like she was presenting a prize. The caption read, "After a long engagement, Jake and Riley Harlan tied the knot in an intimate family ceremony at the historic Double H Ranch. The couple plans to reside on the family property." No mention of the first wedding, no mention of the day I walked away in my gown, just a clean, polished story like the one that came before had never happened. I stared at the screen until my coffee went cold. No rage surged up, no tears burned my eyes, just a quiet click, like a lock turning in a door I'd left ajar for too long. They'd built their happy ending on the wreckage of mine and called it fate. I closed the tab, went back to the proposal I was writing, a hill country vineyard wedding for a couple from Dallas. They wanted blue bonnets in April. A gamble, but we'd make it work. Acoustic guitar under string lights, brisket and sausage from Smitty's. I typed notes. Wildflower runners down the aisle, mason jar centerpieces, two-step lesson after dinner. Simple, real, the kind of wedding I used to dream of. That evening, after the office emptied and the sun dipped low, I loaded Bandit into the truck and drove west. Not all the way to Kerrville, just far enough to find a public overlook on the edge of the hill country, a gravel pull-off with a view of rolling ridges turning purple in the twilight. I parked, let Bandit out to sniff the cedar, and sat on the tailgate. The wind carried dust and pine, same as always. I thought about the girl who stood under that oak 3 years ago, ring on her finger, heart full of forever. I thought about the woman who walked away, boots on gravel, no looking back. I thought about the life I'd built since, the business, the house, the dog, the quiet nights when I fell asleep without wondering if someone was lying beside me. I raised an imaginary glass to the sunset. Orange bleeding into deep blue, stars already pricking through. I said, out loud, to Roots. Bandit woofed once, tail thumping against the tailgate like he agreed. The ache was still there, faint as an old bruise, but it didn't rule me anymore. Jake and Riley could have their story, the polished version, the one Evelyn approved. They could live in that big red barn with its fresh whitewash and perfect photo ops. They could pretend the cracks never existed. Me, I had something better. I had truth. I had rebuilt from the ground up, brick by brick, choice by choice. No illusions, no silence covering rot, just solid ground under my feet. I scratched Bandit behind the ears, watched the last sliver of sun disappear. Then I climbed back in the truck, turned the key, and drove east, back toward Austin, back to the life I'd made mine. The road hummed under the tires. Country radio played low. George Strait singing about love that lasts. I smiled, small and private. Some loves last, some don't. Mine hadn't, but I had. And that was enough.